In last week's episode, we tackled the first 3 of 5 animal welfare needs. This week, we're going to dive deep into the ones that pet parents probably fail at the most. My conversation with Dr. Emma Milne, who is a world renowned veterinarian and animal welfare advocate, continues as we tackle this tough subject and the need for animals to, number one, be able to exhibit their natural behavior, and number two, to have appropriate companionship based on their species. If you're a pet parent or pet lover, you're not going to want to miss this episode, so stay tuned. You're listening to Starlight Pet Talk, a podcast for pet parents who want the best pet care advice from cat experts, dog trainers, veterinarians, and other top pet professionals who will help you live your very best life with your pets. We also share inspiring rescue and adoption stories from people who've taken their love of pets to the next level by getting involved in animal welfare. My name is Amy Castro, and I'm the founder and president of Starlight Outreach and Rescue and a columnist for Pet Age magazine. I've rescued thousands of animals and helped people just like you find the right pet for their family. My mission is to help pet parents learn all the ways that they can care for, live with, and even have fun with their pets so they can live their very best lives and their pets can too. So let's go ahead and move on to the tougher stuff. Need number 4, the need to express natural behavior.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's another thing that people don't have any clue. There's the extremes. Either they have no clue, or there's so many people that, still are equating natural behavior in dogs to wolves and other things. And it's like, yeah, I think they, in many ways, have evolved past that. So that may not be accurate either. Where are you seeing us go wrong as humans in this area?
Oh, I think these are massive. I mean, the behavioural and social needs, which are the two, as I see them, the two sort of psychological needs, I think are really inextricably linked. So if you're happy to, let's talk about both of them together.
Yeah, because 5 was whether they need companionship or whether they need to be with other animals, which some animals do and some animals don't.
Yeah,
so
and I
let's lump them together.
I think these two mental well-being needs are hugely misunderstood. So in the UK, we've got, I don't know what it's like in the States, but in the UK, we have about 1.5 million rabbits are kept as pets. And the social needs are a real big one because, if you want a rabbit, but not 2 rabbits, then a rabbit isn't the right pet for you because they have social needs. They're social animals. Classic thing was that people would think, well, I'm going to have this beautiful environment for my pet rabbit, so they won't need to dig. Well, you can't take away an innate need that an animal has. Rabbits want to dig. So if you want to be a good owner for a rabbit, you have to provide them with something that they can dig in. And it's this kind of human convenience thing. So, I don't really want a big hutch and a run. I don't want the garden getting nibbled. Then a rabbit isn't the right pet for you. Cats are solitary animals, and loads of crazy cat ladies have got millions of them. Their behavioural needs are really misunderstood. So cats are really subtle communicators. The first 2 kids' books that I wrote were cats and rabbits because they're the most misunderstood pets. And it's really difficult to get their behavioural and social needs right. So we already talked about declawing. A normal cat behaviour that they need to exhibit is clawing. It's conditioning for their claws, it's scent marking, it's this massive behavioural need. If you don't want a cat to claw stuff in your house, then a cat isn't the right pet for you. Going back to the extreme conformation, one of the talks I'm doing this week at this conference in Orlando is the behavioural impact of extreme conformation as well, because I think we're really used to talking about the physical stuff. But when you look at, for instance, well, as we touched on earlier with the Sphinx cats, can they groom properly? Can they do this fundamental behavioural need that they have? And I think meeting those behavioural needs is something that's massively misunderstood and neglected across pet keeping. The behaviour and social needs are something that really need much more investment from owners. Mm-hmm. And I think as vets, we should probably be much stronger on getting that across. I think one of the big issues that vets always face is that people don't come to us for advice before they get an animal. They only come to us once they've already got it. And I
Right.
think it's one of the things that I put in all my talks is that veterinary profession, we should be doing much more to try and get to people before they get animals. And it can be done in a diplomatic way. It's
Hmm.
if you can't meet these five welfare needs, that isn't the right pet for you.
Yeah. Well, and I think, for our veterinarians, because I do a lot of training and consulting in my business life with veterinarians, is it's a struggle to try, you're trying to keep your client happy, you're trying to keep their business, you're trying to do, what's the best thing for the animal that now that they've already got, and it's really difficult. And I find this in rescue too. It's really difficult to say you've made a mistake and
Mm,
you need to make a change, you've gotten the wrong pet.
yeah.
So they're kind of between a rock and a hard place to a certain degree.
And the thing is, having been on the other end of it, I years ago when I was in practice, I was really shocked that I took this phone call and this lady said to me, "Oh, I'm thinking about getting a dog, but I wanted to get your advice about what sort of breed to get." And I was like, "Wow, this never happens." And she said, "Oh, I was thinking about getting a Basset," and I said, "Oh, they've got loads of health issues, really, really severe health issues because of their conformation and so on." And she said, "Oh, well, what about?" And then she came up with something else. And I said, "Well, yeah, they're better, but still, you've picked a breed that is very prone to this, this, and this." And in the end, she got really angry with me because obviously it's that I've got lots of friends who are vets, obviously, and we talk about brachycephalic breeds and things, and I've got so many vets who've said, "Oh, someone in my own family asked me if what I thought about them getting a French bulldog," and the vet said, "Definitely don't get a French bulldog," and then they just go and get one anyway. So
Yeah.
even when we try and give people advice pre-purchase, often it's ignored anyway. But I think
I
it's
don't
a
think people
really,
really want to hear it. They just want you to to reinforce what they already want to do. It's like when my
yeah,
husband used to hold up two ties and he'd say, "Which tie do you think I should wear?" And I'd say, "This one." The one on the right, and he'd say, "Well, are you sure? Because da 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 da." And it's like, "No, I think still the one on the right." And again, I give you three tries, right? By the time I've said the one on the right three times, I'll just say, "Look, it sounds like you want to wear the one on the left. Wear what you want." It's
yeah.
like
Why
you don't
why
really
did you
want my
ask?
advice. Yeah, why did you ask me in the first place along the way?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
when we talked before, and it sounded like maybe you didn't want to. I want to go down this road about the indoor outdoor cat thing when it comes to behavior, because at least in my experience and the research that I have done, that indoor cats tend to live longer lives. Length and quality, I know, are not necessarily the same thing, which has gotten me really
Mm,
to think about it some more. But in many communities in the United States, it's not even legal to have an outdoor free roaming cat. But people do
yeah.
it. It's like nobody does anything about it until your neighbors get fed up, they trap it, and it ends up at animal control. I'm kind of breaking two of the needs with my own personal cats because they're exclusively indoors, and I've got three of them living together, which you had mentioned that cats are more solitary beings. I'd be lying if I said I don't see the some of the negative aspects of doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
From the standpoint of, it's like sometimes they seemingly get along and other times they're smacking each other around and then somebody's peeing on the kitchen counter, kind of thing. And it's like,
Mm,
and it was interesting, but after we had that discussion the other day, there was an article that popped up actually, it was on my Facebook feed from the New Yorker talking about the no kill movement and trap neuter return, which is a big controversial thing in the US. I don't know if it is other places as well. And, the impact of basically saying, okay, we don't want to kill community cats, but we can't bring them indoors because they're feral. So we're trap neutering and returning them, and then they're decimating the bird population, mice, things like that. And it had this. The graphic was very interesting, as the New Yorker graphics always are. It was a aerial view of a seemingly suburban environment, and then these giant god, and they weren't monster faces, but the size of these cats were like Godzilla making their way through the neighborhood kind of thing. And
yeah.
it's like, okay, so what's the right answer there? Let's, as far as the natural behavior of going outside, let's address
Yeah.
that first.
I think it's tricky, and obviously there are massive cultural differences between Europe and the US and lots of other countries. I went to a talk at a massive conference years and years ago. It must be 15 or 20 years ago, and there was a speaker from the States talking about cat behavior, and there was some statistic, and I can't remember it now because it was so long ago, but it was absolutely shocking about the number of cats that are euthanized in the States because of inappropriate toileting behavior. I do quite a bit of clinical nutrition advice as well. And a lot of the calls that we get regarding prescription foods are for cats that are urinating in the house or have got stress cystitis or all those things. So one of my things is the kids' books that I wrote are called Is a Cat the Right Pet for You? The Pet Detective series, Is a Gerbil the Right Pet for You? Those kind of things. And the big issue with cats is we would never, well, some people do, you wouldn't have a dog and keep it indoors. Why do we expect a cat that is in the wild? Cats have a territory of about 500 square meters average. Not many houses are going to provide that environment. So this whole thing about providing an adequate environment for your animals, as when we went through the 5 welfare needs, the environment thing is, for a dog, easy. Buy it a bed, or let it sleep in your bedroom, wherever you're going to do it, and you take it out for walks and you meet its needs. But the cats, why do we assume that they'd be happy indoors? They're not happy indoors. There's a huge, very, very well evidenced research that shows that the biggest cause of stress-related issues in cats is being kept indoors and being kept with other cats. So it comes down to this: is an animal the right pet for you? And probably it's difficult because I know that loads of cats are kept in the States, and I've had people attack me on Facebook, other vets even, from the US, who've said, well, but if I let them out, they're going to get eaten by coyotes. Well, obviously, we don't have that problem in the UK. We don't have these free-roaming massive predators. But for me, it comes back to, if you cannot meet the behavioural needs of an animal, and to me, going outside is a behavioural need for a cat. And one of the big issues in lots of places with wildlife, there's a very famous presenter in England on wildlife called Chris Packham, and he is a very vocal proponent of people not letting cats out because of the volume of wildlife that they kill.
Right.
So we've domesticated cats, and we have to take responsibility for the fact that they're there. So we do need to do TNR schemes and things, but we also need to, if the same as with the physical illnesses of the pedigree animals, if you want to make animal welfare better, we probably need to have fewer of them and look after them better. And gradually reducing populations is a difficult thing to do.
Yes.
So for me, I know this will be really odd to hear for a lot of your US listeners. I don't think cats should be kept indoors. I absolutely am against cats being kept indoors. They need to have, one of the fundamental things that's important for animal mental well-being is freedom of choice. So, this one thing that we talk about with rabbits is don't have a hutch and a run. You have a hutch and a massive run that they can access whenever they want to, because they're crepuscular animals, which means they're active at dawn and dusk, same as cats. And it's not convenient for us, so we put them out in the day when they don't want to be out. So I think if I was going to change the face of pet keeping, I would want everyone to have to prove that they knew what the 5 welfare needs were for the animal they're thinking about getting, and that they had to prove they could meet them. And you would transform, well, this working in rescue. How many animals do you get in because people didn't want them scratching the furniture, or the dog's uncontrollable because they didn't socialize it properly, or they didn't, you'll see it all the time. It is that definitely inappropriate choice of pet. And people have to have the discipline. This is why in the kids' books, they do their month, and then they ask themselves, can I meet the needs of this pet? And the last chapter is, it's all right to say no. You know, if you realize that you didn't have enough space for a rabbit, or you didn't have enough time to walk a dog every day, then that's fine. And then it looks like, well, it doesn't mean you can't have a pet, but maybe just think about a pet that you're going to have this symbiotic relationship with, you know, mutually beneficial relationship where you're providing its needs. And the thing is, you'll see this all the time in rescue. A lot of animal behavior issues, which will end up making them come to you, are because their behavioral needs aren't being met. So, you know, things like frustration, destructive behavior, cats urinating in the house all the time, they are because those animals' behavioral and social needs are not being met. And, you know, we just don't see that the same as we would if someone starved a dog. It's a very easy thing to get upset about, but actually the mental well-being is enormous.
Yeah. You know, and I think specific to this issue of cats, what it got me thinking about is there's a rescue, and I can't remember the name of the rescue, but it's a huge rescue that has a big following that's in the northern United States, where it gets 1,000,000 degrees below zero in the wintertime. And so they get a lot of outdoor cats that literally their ears will freeze off. So they have all these cats that have partial ears and sometimes missing toes and parts of their tails, things like that. And so, but it got me thinking about the fact that when it comes to looking at this environment, it's beyond the inside and outside. It is looking at, you know, where do you live? What might be one of the differences between cats' homes in the US versus the UK would be like my backyard, should I want to let my cats out, is probably easily an acre and a half.
Yep.
And so, but at the same time, I have had goats hauled over my fence by a cougar. I've had all of my ducks got decimated by coyotes. We've got bobcats, and I am outside the fourth largest city in the United States, not too far, about an hour outside of the city. Could I do something to secure my backyard to give my cats some territory to be outside with certain cat proof fencing? Absolutely, I could do that. You know, we just adopted out to a lady because we require cats to be indoors unless you have made those accommodations because of the legalities, because of the predators. You know, for right, wrong, or otherwise, that's a decision that we made. But you know, this lady had gone to the trouble of getting that cat-proof fencing for her suburban backyard. So it's like, okay, then you can have the cat and put it outside, and it's probably going to have a happier life. And I think that just kind of goes back to the overall picture that we're talking about, is that, you know, as you're going through these 5 needs of pets, is that you, like you said, I mean, you said it, and I'll say it again, is, you know, you really need to look at whether you can provide it. How far are you willing to go to provide what that animal's needs? And if you're not willing to even take a basic step like putting up a fence or taking the dog for a walk 30 minutes a day, then you really need to question whether you need a pet, you know, any kind of pet, let alone that particular type of pet.
Yeah.
And I think people just need to be more honest with themselves and maybe not be so selfish.
Yeah. But and that, I mean,
Myself included.
But we all do it, you know. I think it is just, it's human nature. We want something and we don't want someone to tell us we can't have it.
Yeah.
And
Watch me.
Yeah. But the thing is, you know, if you take this to its natural nth degree, then you get into someone saying, well, what about all the people that have children that they can't look after properly? And it's like, oh, wait, this is, yeah. But it's true. You know, people make snap decisions. I want this, therefore I will have it. And, you know, we live in this sort of one-click culture where people can get whatever they want. And I think, you know, going back to the behavioural and social needs, and you can tell me your views on this from the state's point of view, is that we have huge issues now with the welfare of exotic pets. So we've got snakes and geckos and all sorts of things being kept. Things like snakes, minimum enclosure sizes for snakes, they don't have to be able to stretch out. Now, who has decided that a snake should never be able to stretch itself to its full length if it wanted to. Who made that decision? And a lot of as we said with rabbits, a lot of this is based on grandfather things that happened before. My husband used to do a lot of exotic work. He's a vet, and he would regularly get leopard geckos in with these lesions on their chins because they spend all day running into the side of their vivarium. So that should tell you that those animals are not suitable for captivity. You know,
Right.
it's as simple
Right.
as that. It's, you know, if we don't even understand the basic needs of them, we shouldn't be having them as pets.
Yeah.
You know, and things like tortoises that are kept in completely inadequate temperatures and never get to hibernate and lose limbs because they're poorly hibernated. You know, the list goes on. If we can't meet the basic welfare needs of things like cats and dogs that we've kept in captivity forever, why on earth are we adding another 1,000 species that aren't native to where we live? And this is one of the big issues with cats in general, is that they're not native to most places, but
Hmm.
we have to take responsibility for the fact that we've domesticated them and they're now bloody everywhere. You know, so
Right. Well,
um
yeah, and we've brought them here. We brought them to these locations where even if they can get outdoors, they're not suited to the environment. Because I think that's
yeah,
you know that's I think a huge difference between dogs and cats in being outdoors is that if I let my dog, well, down here, at least here in the States, and I'll speak to Texas specifically, if your dog was free roaming, everybody'd be talking about it. Somebody'd be catching him and returning him to you or turning him into the shelter or whatever the case may be. But cats free roam everywhere. And dogs, there's not too many. Now, if the one cougar that apparently roams our area, yeah, it probably could get my dog, but I think my cats are much more at risk as prey,
yeah,
because they're predators and prey, whereas dogs, for the most part, in most communities, are really just predators. There's not too much that can prey on them. So
yeah,
that makes a little bit of a difference, I think, down here. But again, that's our choice when we decide to take that animal on as a pet. So now, knowing that my cat is predator and prey, how do I meet its needs and keep it safe? Because that's part of one of its needs, is to
yeah.
to be healthy and be safe. And so
I
maybe I
mean,
don't need a cat out here, kind of thing.
yeah. I mean, but it is that thing, isn't it? Is you know, we have a lot of RTAs in England where cats have horrific injuries on the road. And I know that there are lots of people who say, well, that's why I keep my cat in. But I think, you know, to me, it's the same as if I said, well, I've got two children, they might have an injury, they might break a leg or they might break an arm or whatever, as lots of kids do. But I wouldn't just keep them in the house and make them miserable in case something happened to them. I think there's a balance between meeting the behavioural needs of your pets and choosing the right pet for your situation. And actually, in the States, if they're not allowed out, then maybe fewer people should have them. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? If
Yeah,
you've got a
exactly.
massive garden and you can afford to put a cat-proof fence around it, brilliant. You know, you're providing for all the behavioural needs of that animal. And I
Right.
think, you know, this whole thing of telling people, I'm probably going to get loads of hate mail from this, but I think
Me too, but that's okay.
telling people that they can't meet the needs of an animal is unpopular.
Right.
But it's something that we should be talking about because, you know, having a pet is you should be providing for all of its needs, whether they're
Mhm.
convenient or not, you know, and this whole debarking, declawing, keeping them in, you know, having a run that's separate from a hutch. We shouldn't be compromising on animals' welfare needs because of it's inconvenient for us. You know,
Yeah.
if something is too inconvenient, then that isn't the right pet for you.
Yeah. Well, it becomes, I think, kind of a cyclical thing, like you mentioned. It's like, maybe it's not the right pet for you. Maybe we need fewer of those pets to be out there as an option for people. Like the exotics. I mean, there's just some of those things. It's like, why did anybody ever decide that we need to go grab that thing from some other continent and, stuff it in a crate and ship it here so that somebody can have this anomaly in their home? I don't know.
Mm.
but I think, that it also brings up the question, and you really got me thinking this past week about the whole, back to the cats and the indoor outdoor thing, is that quality of life versus quantity of life. To say, oh well, because you keep a cat indoors, it might live to be, I don't know. I don't know what the stats are off the top of
20.
my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, 20 years old. But I have right now in my barn 6 barn cats, and at least in the last 2 years, 2 of them have disappeared. One of them we did find. Something obviously got it, and so you say, okay, well that cat only made it to 6, or that cat only made it to 3. And I think it's hard, as for human beings, we spend a lot of time projecting projecting our needs on our pets, projecting our behaviors on them. Like, even the need to express natural behavior, it's like people think that, or the social, let's take the social as an example. Well, my bunny doesn't need another bunny because I'm playing with my bunny and interacting with my bunny. It's like, how do you know your bunny really wants to interact with you? I mean, they might,
Yeah.
but they can't tell you that. They can't tell you, I'm longing for another bunny to hang out with. I mean, you just have to look
Yeah.
at what their natural behavior is. And so my barn cats, I wish they could say to me, hey, we're living the life out here. And, if I get picked off by a coyote tomorrow, I would have been glad to have those 5 years versus the 20 years that the cat that's living inside. They can't tell us. And so we've got to make our best judgment for them and try our best to meet these needs.
I think that's right. You've hit it on the head there. It is that quality of life versus quantity. Um, and I think as humans, you know, we want them to live as long as possible. Of course we do, because we've got them for companionship. But
Hmm.
for me, it's much more important that the animals are emotionally cared for their emotional needs. Their behavioral and social needs are so important. And I do think it makes for uncomfortable conversations. But, as I said with our kids, they had to prove to me that they were going to look after the gerbils, and they looked after them really well. I mean, there were times obviously that I ended up clearing them out, and as we always do as parents. But, you know, I I think it's this the 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 fact that people think that they're entitled to have any animal they want without going through that process of, am I the right person to have that animal? And I think that meeting animals' behavioural and social needs is hugely lacking, actually, for a lot of animals that are kept as pets. I would love there to be a test that people had to pass if they ever wanted any animal. um, so yeah, just this proof of, can you meet its needs, and be honest with yourself.
Yeah, that's the
That
key.
that's the fundamental thing. Yeah, you might want. We've all got things we want. I want another dog. I would love another dog, but I cannot meet its needs because I travel too much, and
Right.
I'm single now, so I don't have someone that I can leave the dog with. And a lot of my
Hmm.
friends work, so you have to be honest with yourself. Can I look after this
Right.
animal? Can I meet its 5 welfare needs? Do I know what its 5 welfare needs are? And if I
Hmm.
can't, then it's not the right pet for me. And I
Right.
think it takes a lot for people to actually to go through that cognitive process and be honest. We can all
Right.
ask the questions, but we've got to actually act on the answers.
Yeah. And I think thinking long term too. My daughter says I'm a bit of an ageist when it comes to adoptions, because I get very concerned when somebody is 18 years old or 80 years old and wants to, and it's not necessarily those exact numbers, but on either end of the adult spectrum, when they say they want to take on a kitten or they want to take on a puppy or whatever the case may be. We've had people show up at adoption events, and somebody is 7 months pregnant and they've already got 2 toddlers in tow, and it's like, is now the time for a puppy? Have you really thought
Yeah,
about that?
it
It's
definitely
like,
isn't.
yeah, I mean, yeah, no, it definitely isn't. Have you thought it all the way through? And people, they're, like you said, they're thinking about the here and now. And I think if we did a better job of thinking it all the way through, thinking about these needs, and maybe making the decision to say no, this is not right for me, now's not the right time, or whatever. Because when we say yes in that spontaneous mode, not only are we doing the wrong thing for ourselves and the animal, but we're perpetuating the entire issue.
Yeah.
If more people said, no, I'm not going to get a cat because I can't keep it, I can't allow it to go outdoors, then the cat population, like you said, would be less over time, because there would be no place for the cats to go, kind of thing. And so maybe that's what needs to happen. Instead of being part of the problem, be part of the longer term solution for
Mm. But I think
for
that's the
especially
thing,
our
isn't
pet
it?
overpopulation issue.
Yeah, exactly. And it's about people being honest with themselves about whether they can meet those animals' needs, and what the wider implications are. I think as humans, we're not used to denying ourselves stuff.
Right. Well, and we like to think that we're going to do the right thing. And it's, maybe it's not even a matter of, am I going to not meet the animal's needs, but is there, if I left that animal where it was, whoever that may be, whether it's with the breeder or at the shelter or at the rescue, is there somebody that's going to come along that's going to meet their needs better? And that's oftentimes when we reject somebody, especially when we have the luxury of having multiple people applying, let's say, for the same animal. It's not that you're not okay, but we feel like this other person has whatever it may be, the experience, the, like you said, the property, the environment, the whatever it might be, that can do just that much better. And our responsibility, we feel like, in taking these animals in, is to find that person that, to the best of our ability, we've identified that can best meet all of that animal's needs. And that's, and at that point, then I can sleep at night with
Yeah,
what I've done in letting that animal go out the door.
yeah. And I mean, working in adoption is, you know, I think that you've got such, that's a massive responsibility for anyone. And I don't know if you have an issue with it there. I'm sure you do, because it's human psychology. But I've been involved with quite a few cases of hoarding. We had this one time that the practice I was working at took in, I think they had 80 dogs and 20 cats or something, all came in from one house. And the animals were just appalling, overgrown nails, matted fur, abscesses, teeth falling out. And the owner genuinely thought that no one else could look after the animals as well as her, but was completely overwhelmed by it. And obviously, there's a huge spectrum of pet owners, and lots of people are doing a great job. I don't want to sound really negative about everything.
Final thoughts. Any other point that you want to make to kind of wrap things up?
I think if I could change the world of pet keeping, I think from the breed point of view, obviously we touched on the massive breed suffering from extreme conformation. But if I could change stuff, I would get people to research the 5 welfare needs of any animal that they were going to take on, and do the practice month. I did it for the kids' books, but actually we should all be asking ourselves whether we can meet those needs, and know what those needs are. And if you can't, be honest with yourself. Look at a different pet that you might not have considered. And I would say to people, I'm not saying you can't have breeds. Lots of people say to me, oh, you want to get rid of all the breeds. I don't. I wouldn't care. I think mongrels are great. We fell in love with dogs as humans. Why aren't we happy with them as just dogs anymore? But say we've got 300 and something breeds that are recognised by the International Kennel Club. If we took out 30 that have got extreme conformation and suffer because of it, say 30, 40 maybe, you've still got 300 other breeds of dog you can pick. Just
Lots of
pick
choice.
something. Yeah, just pick something that's moderate and healthy.
Emma, this has been a great conversation. I could probably talk about another hour on this subject with you, because it's just number one, you've given me a lot of food for thought personally, and my wheels are already turning, and things that I can adjust. I was even just here at this very last moment thinking about how can I incorporate these needs into our adoption application more effectively, if nothing else, to do that pre-education before people adopt. I mean, we try to have conversations with people. We don't just like let animals go out the door, but to really dig into what it is that this animal's going to need, and, you know, think on that for 48 hours and then let's have another conversation, kind of thing, to really you know, get people started down the right road in selecting the right pet for them, and digging past that superficial level and really getting down into it, I think, too, because I think it, like we said, it would be real easy to say, of course I can do this, of course I can do this, I could, you know, but what do you really know what that means? You know, do you really know what normal behavior is? Do you really know what environment that animal needs? And really dig down into it. That's, you know, that's the whole reason we have this podcast, is for education. So I'm hoping that I know that you have educated me and really opened my eyes to some things. And I'm hoping that people who listen to this, even if they initially get a little bit angry or feel a little bit accused, or maybe, you know, I think if you are feeling a little defensive when you listen to this, there's probably a reason for that. And so take that deep breath, think about it for 24 hours, and then say, is there truth to that? And, you know, could I maybe have made a different decision? I'm already rethinking my own along the way as far as my future with cats and how I'm going to manage that. So I thank you so much for your time.
We're all guilty of it. I had 3 cats before that all lived together, and I'm sure 2 of them weren't particularly happy with that situation. And now I would never have a cat on its own that wasn't a solitary cat now. But yeah, no, it's been a real pleasure. I'm sure I could carry on talking for another 3 days probably.
Right. Well, I thank you so much for your time, and I thank everybody for listening to another episode of Starlight Pet Talk. Thanks for listening to Starlight Pet Talk. Be sure to visit our website at www.starlightpettalk.com for more resources, and be sure to follow this podcast on your favorite podcast app so you'll never miss a show. If you enjoyed and found value in today's episode, we'd appreciate a rating on Apple. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would be great too. Don't forget to tune in next week and every week for a brand new episode of Starlight Pet Talk. And if you don't do anything else this week, give your pets a big hug from us.